Hello there. I am so friggin' stoked, so excited to see you here. Now, I want to tell you a little funny story before we get started. Um, I had this whole masterclass planned, had the live, and I forgot to record it. You see, life just sometimes lifes you. So here I am, a second time around, uh, to provide a recording of this masterclass. And I'll tell you, the previous version of me would have just been like, I would have just given up. But the new version of me realizes that, you know what? Sometimes shit happens and you just learn to roll with it. And this is how becoming a creator, how creating your best life becomes and how that happens. So, anyways, I officially want to welcome you here to this masterclass on how to create your best life. Because for a lot of us, we're like, well, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do that? Like, how do I create my own life? Well, I want to tell you something. You already are creating your life. You create every single moment of your life. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, what? I don't create my life. I'm not really thinking about my creating my life, but you are. Because I will tell you that your present of what you're living in right now has been based on your past thinking. Your past creates your future. What you think is what you become. You know that famous quote? And it is so true. And I will tell you, for the longest time, I didn't get it. I didn't understand that. What do you mean what I think is what I become? What do you mean what I think is what I create? I didn't understand it until I started to understand this one really critical piece. My mind. And then I literally became obsessed with learning about my mind. So I want to take you back a little bit, though, into my own personal journey, because some of you here don't actually know me personally and don't know my journey. So I want to take a moment to talk about that. So hopefully you know who I am. I'm Kimberly. But if not, hi, nice to be here virtually with you. I'm a reflexology therapist, a yin yoga teacher, an acupressure practitioner, and I'm all about self-care. And self-care has always been an important part of my life for as long as I can remember. In fact, when my mom was pregnant with me, back then, she did what they call yoga, or what did they call it? I think she said, exercising for birthing, which was basically yoga for preparing your body to give birth. But they didn't call it yoga back then. See, I'm dating myself. But even when I was in the womb, I didn't move. The only time I ever moved in the womb was when when we had a cat at the time, when my cat would sit on my mom's belly and I would go berserk. But as soon as the cat was off my belly, nothing. It's like I was literally a sitting Buddha. And I remember my mom used to go like for appointments and she used to say to the doctor, like, I don't know, but I think there's something wrong with this baby. Like, she doesn't move. Like, she doesn't kick or anything, only when there's a cat on her, sitting on my belly. And the doctors like ran all the tests and everything like that. And they're like, heartbeat strong. She's there. And my mom would be like, okay. Well, long story short, I was actually born very premature. I decided that in July 17th, I was like, I'm coming out. I was supposed to be born at the end of October. I was supposed to be a Halloween baby. Ended up being a summer baby. And I came out butt first. So back then, they didn't try and put the baby back in and then try to move the baby around and, head out first. Nope. I came out butt first and they just literally pulled me out of my mom. And I wanted to be in this world. And so I was a force to be reckoned with back then. I wasn't like a diva or anything like that. I wasn't like a high maintenance baby, but I certainly had a strong will, even as a baby. Like my mom said, you know, I was the first child. I have a younger sibling, younger sister. But like for a baby of my, like when I was a little baby, like I was walking and I was crawling and walking and talking a lot faster than most, even though I was premature and spent, you know, quite a bit of time in an incubator. I just was a force to be reckoned with. And as I grew up, went through my childhood and my high school years, I was always the one that just went for it. I did it all. I was a cheerleader. I was a senior boys basketball manager in a Catholic high school where that was taboo. There had never been a basketball manager of a boys team who was a girl. I was the first girl in my school to take shop. Remember, like, you know, woodworking and stuff like that? I was the first girl in my school to do that because in my school, I went to a Catholic school, very strict Catholic school. The girls went and took home ec, right? They learned how to cook and sew and crap like that. I didn't want anything to do with that. I was like, what? I don't want to learn how to sew and cook. Like I could give a rat's behind about any of that. I want to learn carpentry and I want to learn how to make like wooden things. But really what I wanted was I just wanted to be different, right? So I always went kind of against the norm. And I was never afraid to do anything. I just went for it. I even decided to run for high school president. I didn't win. I wasn't elected, but I tried. And if you've ever tried to do that, like, you know, it's a massive undertaking to actually go out there, put yourself out there, speak publicly, and try to convince people that you are the one that should be leading their high school. Like, so I wasn't afraid to do anything, even though it didn't work out. I don't consider it a failure. It was just, that was a really cool experience, but I was never afraid. And in fact, the man that I married, I was the one that pursued him because if I had waited for him, I would have never married him. Now you're probably thinking, wow, this chick, of course she creates her life. She's been doing this her whole life. Well, it wasn't always like that. So after I met the man, fell in love, and got married to the man who I thought was going to be rocking chairs forever, I found out he was an alcoholic. Now, you're probably thinking, well, didn't you already know? No, he was really good at hiding it. And he was what was considered and called a functioning alcoholic, meaning he could do everything. He just needed to drink. And as long as he drank, he was functioning. He could hold down a job. He loved me. He cared for me. He supported me financially and in all the ways. He was always there for me. He was like the model perfect husband, except he was an alcoholic. But eventually the alcohol took over his life and he went in and out of rehab many times, was sober for several years after coming out of rehab. Went back into rehab and then sober again, and then back into rehab, sober again. And then eventually the last time he went into rehab, he just never was able to overcome his addiction. And that's during that whole time of being with him, my light, my internal light, my soul inside of me was getting dimmer and dimmer, quieter and quieter. And I was becoming more of a victim in my life than a creator in my life. And I want to be really clear about talking about being a victim in your life, because there are actually two different types of victims that you can be. And it's really important to understand this. And before I even define that, I first want to just put out a disclaimer out there that if you've been a victim because of somebody else, someone has abused you, taken advantage of you, you've been a victim of, a severe injury or in an accident, or, your house being blown down by a tornado, something that was outside of your control. Like, I want you to know that that type of being a victim is very different than the internal victim mentality that we hold. Okay. So we have two different types of victims. There's the internal victim. It's the you control. And then there's the external victim, where this is where life happens, shit happens to you that you have no control of. Like, for example, a tornado blowing down your house and you're standing in the rubble, right? You have no control over the fact that that tornado happened. But here is where there's a distinct difference. And I'll use me as an example of this. So when I was married to my husband, who was an alcoholic, I was both an internal and an external victim. So there was the external victim because I was married to an alcoholic. I was in that situation. I didn't ask to be married to an alcoholic. I didn't know he was an alcoholic. He was. So that was my reality. I was married to an alcoholic. However, the internal victim, this is my part, this is the really important part, was I chose that. I chose to continue being that, being married to an alcoholic who eventually abused me. And so I allowed that to continue to happen. Now, again, I want to talk about if you've been a victim. So if you've been abused by somebody, this is something completely different. This is where, seeking the support that you need, whether it's a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, a doctor of some type to help you. This is really important, right? If you've been victimized that way. But at the end of the day, there is always choice. We always have the choice. And this is where it gets really hard for people, and where it got really hard for me, because for years, people kept telling me that were really close to me. In fact, one of my best friends, who I used to go and stay with every once in a while, and who actually offered her 500 square foot condo to live in with her, she was going to completely disrupt her life to help me. And I chose, definitely the thumbs up to her, because she was a major sounding board and support system for me. But at the end, I kept choosing to go back to the marriage, to go back to the relationship, until eventually I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't handle it. I had a breaking point. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. I just wanted it to happen. I wanted a different life for myself. So I decided to step out of being a victim, and I took full accountability for my life. No more excuses. Because when you sit in the excuses over and over and over again, guess what? You're sitting in a victim mindset. So I chose to step into being a creator, and I asked for help. And I was really fortunate. There were people that were there to help me. My mom, being like, she always says she's my number one fan. She helped me. She helped me leave and helped me to be able to move into this condo that I'm living in right now, 8 years later. Now, this journey of getting to where I am now, where I fully step into being that creator in my life again, like I was when I was a young kid, hasn't been an easy journey. But you know what? It's been one that I would, with no regrets, because I've learned so much about who I am becoming. They always say that it's not the destination that you're interested in, it's the journey. And I'll tell you, for a long time, I didn't get that. I didn't understand that. Just like I didn't understand, like, what you think is what you create, or what you think is, what you think is what you become. I didn't get that part of, like, what do you mean it's the journey? Don't I want to get to over here because this is where all the good stuff is? No, it's actually what you learn about yourself along the way that is really important, that really matters. That is truly like the most important part of your journey. It's a continuous journey of healing and growth. Healing and growth. It doesn't end until you take your last physical breath in this flesh, bones, and body that you're in, right? But I'll tell you that the journey is filled with challenges. And the biggest challenge that you will face in your journey of creating who you are meant to be is your mind. It's that ego mind, that primal part of your brain. This primal part of our brain is the duality of who we are. So we have this primal brain that sits in this physical flesh, bones, and body, right? Blood body in this human experience. But then we have something else. The other part of the duality is the soul. We have a soul inside of us that never dies. It continues on. It's eternal. And the soul, all the soul craves is to live out all of the desires that have been placed upon your heart. But your ego is along for that ride. And the ego is what stops you every single time from becoming that next version of you, to creating the next version of you, to holding the desire of that next version of you. The ego is always there. It never goes away. So your journey of healing and growing is about learning to heal and grow with your ego in tow. Think of yourself like you're driving your car. The soul part of you is driving the car on its route to its destinations, living out its dreams along the way. And your ego is in the passenger seat, sitting beside you. But a lot of the times, it's the other way around. Your ego is sitting in the driver's seat, and you're sitting, not only are you maybe sitting in the side passenger seat, most of the time you're sitting in the back seat, looking back, right? And your ego only ever operates from what it's known. It doesn't have the ability to future forecast and look at, oh, she wants to do this. She wants to create that. She wants to be this. No, it doesn't have that forward thinking. It just looks back at the past and goes, oh, yeah, you tried that before. Well, that didn't work very well. What makes you think you're going to do it this time? And guess what? You talk yourself out of it. It's actually your ego that talks you out of doing anything, of making any change, any shift. It's your ego. So this journey of healing and growth is about learning to navigate your ego with your soul so that you can live out your desires. So I want to ask you something. Knowing what a true victim is, and knowing what a creator is, are you a creator or are you a victim in your life right now? Because I'll tell you something, spoiler alert, you create everything in your life. So while you might not create the tornado, you create how you respond to it. So you might not create, because life, here's the thing, life is going to life you, and there is going to be things that are going to happen, accidents, injuries, deaths, losses, trauma. That's all possible options that are available, that can and most likely at some point in your life are going to happen. And you don't have control over that happening, but you have control about how you respond to it. Just like if you were standing in front of your house that just got wiped out by a tornado, you have two options. You can choose to sit in the rebel of that, literally, but also mentally, and just say, well, you know what? My house just got destroyed, so my life is over. This is it. Or you can choose to go, okay, this really fucking sucked. I lost everything, but I'm still here. I'm still alive. The people that I love are okay. There is lots of support out there that I can tap into. I'm not alone. I'm going to be okay. Those are two different, completely different mindsets. And I'll tell you that how we determine that is what set of lenses are we wearing as we look out into the world. So if you're in a victim mindset, guess what type of lens you're wearing? A lens that has frames that are scratched and dirty and dark, and where everything you look at is like heavy, dark, dismal. Or you're wearing a set of glasses that are sparkly, that shine and shimmer. And when you look through them, everything you see is gold and beautiful. You determine what type of lens you're wearing every single moment of your day. And when you start to get really hyper-focused on listening to your mind, especially when your ego is talking, you'll start to know whether you're wearing the dark, shitty lenses or the bright, shiny ones. Now, how do you know when it's your ego? Your ego is loud, it's rude, it's nasty, it's critical, it's biased, it's judgmental, it's defending. It's always in fear. It's always looking at worst case scenario happening here. That's when you know it's your ego. When it's your soul, that's the other part of you. Remember, we are a duality, right? It's like yin and yang. Your soul she's soft. She's a whisper. She's compassionate. She's kind. She's loving. She's supportive. She's creative. She's intuitive. She's aware. She's excited. She makes big, bold moves, even though she's a little bit scared of them. She trusts herself, right? Like that's the soul part of you. But we get to learn how to navigate and listen to her versus the ego. And how do we do that? Like, how do we actually listen more to our soul than our ego? Well, I'll tell you my big secret that has been literally game-changing for me. And I don't want you to overlook it, because you might. And again, I bet you anything your ego is going to snap right in right away. But I'll tell you something. 15 minutes per day where I devote to self-care. 99% of the time, it's first thing in the morning so that my day has not gotten away from me and I've set myself up. But in 15 minutes every single day, I use my tools. So my tools are meditation, breath work, reflexology, acupressure, yin yoga, right? These are the tools that are in your kit here available for you. This is why I always include embodiment practices in with any masterclass that I put together, because the information is one thing and it can be very inspiring, but without the critical embodiment piece on how to actually integrate, guess what? Half the time, it just lands flat. You're inspired for a little bit of time and then you're like, yeah, okay, all right. I'm going back to listening to my ego, right? So the embodiment practices, for me, 15 minutes a day. This is where I get my downloads, my sparks, my intuition, my inspiration, my guidance, my motivation, right? is by spending these 15 minutes devoted to myself, tuning inward and listening to the soul. Because most of our day, we're listening to our ego, not our soul. And so when we carve out this time every day, it's dedicated, it's daily, it is intentional. We ask for the guidance. We ask for the wisdom. We ask for the next piece of inspired, aligned action to take that is going to move us closer to our desire coming into our physical reality. And, you might be asking, well, how do I get these desires to come true? This is where the magic of the 15-minute pause is. Because it gives you the opportunity to contemplate and to ask questions and to get curious. What would make you feel good? What could you do that would set your soul on fire? Like, I'll tell you something, and another spoiler alert here. When you desire to have something in your life, it's not actually the thing that you're really looking for. It's not really the tangible thing. It's not like the perfect soulmate, the perfect body, the perfect job, the $100,000 salary. It's not that you're looking for. It's the feeling of what it would be like to hold that in the next version of who you are. It's the feeling. It's always the feeling. So it's not the thing. It's the thing behind the thing that you're looking for. You see, you are a vibrational being. You are full of energy. And your energy is always responding outwards. And your energy is attracting the same type of energy that comes back to it. So when you're in a victim mindset, you're in a really low vibrational state. You're typically in a state of fear, worry, anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, anger, disappointment, discouragement, disarray, dismay, despair, right? So when you're in that kind of vibration, that frequency, you're emitting that frequency out there and you're getting that back in return. But when you tap in and you tune in to yourself and you pause and you really listen to the heart. See, in Chinese medicine, your heart, the heart meridian, is the supreme ruler of our life. It's where our creativity and our joy lie. It's where our happiness, our fulfillment, our passion, and our purpose lies, is in the heart center. So when we tune into that, we get the sparks, we get the downloads, and then we take action on them, even though we're scared. And when we're in that higher frequency, this is what happens when you self-care every day. You're putting yourself in the higher vibrational scale, like happiness, excitement, joy, passion, purpose, fulfillment, accomplishment, gratitude, love. Like when you put yourself in those vibrations, you elevate your frequency. And then that's what you put out to the world. And then that's what you get back. That is being a creator in your life. So if you're putting out an energy of gratitude, love, accomplishment, purpose, and passion, you are going to get back things that mirror that. This is how you create your best life. This is the experience of what you're looking for. It's not the thing you're looking for. It's the experience of the feeling of having it, of what it is like to hold that experience in that version of you who has elevated herself to it. That's what you're looking for. That is what your journey is about here in this world. It is about the journey of shedding parts of you that no longer get to come along for life's ride. Like if you're a woman who, I'll just give you an example. If you want to have a really fit, healthy body, you're never going to get there if you're eating junk food every day. If you're not taking care of your body, if you're not moving your body and exercising, right? You're not going to get to that next version of that woman. But if you want to be the woman who is really healthy and vibrant, and, you know, when she looks at herself in the mirror, she's like, damn, I look good. I feel good. These clothes I wear just make me feel incredibly powerful and sexy. Like, it's the feeling of what you want being her. It's not about the clothes you're wearing. It's not about the number on the scale that you weigh. It's about who did you discover you were on that journey to becoming her? That is what you're looking for. This is how we create our best life. It's not about, oh, once I get to that end destination, I have that thing, then I'm going to be happy. Then I'm going to be fulfilled. Then I will have, quote unquote, gotten the dream life. No, your dream life is a continuous progressive journey. And you're always healing and evolving on that journey. That's why they say, you know, life is a journey, not a destination. Because I'll tell you something, once you, quote unquote, have the thing that you desired, guess what's going to happen? Any guesses? Your soul is going to go, oh, next desire, please. You're always going to have desires. This is the process of healing and growth. So if you're always just thinking, oh, once I have this, I'll be happy. Guess what? The only time you're ever going to be happy is in those first fleeting moments of having what you desired. And then boom, right away, it's going to be, all right, well, that was fun. And what's next? Like, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a friend of mine who had a business and she was like, I want to make $5,000 every month. 5K, 5K, 5K. If I can make 5K a month, I'm going to be so happy. She made 5K and guess what? Within a few hours, she was like, well, I made 5K. Maybe I can make 10 now. And then it was 20 and then it was 30 and then it was 40. And guess what? She was actually never happy because she was always trying to catch the next thing. And what she was missing out on was the journey of who she got to become in each one of those iterations of her, quote unquote, making 5K, 10K, 20K. Like the woman who was making 5K is a whole different woman who's making 20K. You can't be the same woman, right? The woman who lost 5 pounds versus the woman who's lost 35 pounds is going to be a completely different woman. You're always going to have desires. So if you're only going to be happy when the desire has been fulfilled, sorry, not sorry, but you're going to spend most of your life actually not being happy. If that's how you're going to approach it. And that's approaching it from a very much victim mindset. Now, if you come about it from a creator's perspective, you're a creator of your life, every part of the journey, even the challenging, shitty, hard moments, have a valuable role to play. This is, you know, and then you're It's not about getting to the destination. So you're happy along the way. You're even happy. I hate to say this, but it's true. You're even happy for the challenges because there is growth in challenge. There is absolute growth in challenge. You don't grow by playing small and not making moves. And sometimes the challenges will throw you off in a direction where you're like, well, this didn't really pan out the way I wanted it to. But here's the thing. Either way, you win. You either learn a really valuable lesson on maybe, well, you know what, next time if I'm in a similar situation, I'm not going to respond the same way. Or you get what you desire, right? Either way, I say you win. Because even if you don't get what you desired, you learn the lesson. At least next time around, you're conscious of that. So guess what? You don't make the same choice. This is why I say this all the time to my students. Without awareness, nothing changes. Nothing changes without your awareness. So the moment you have the awareness of, oh, well, you know what? That didn't roll the way I wanted it to. Good to know. Let me bank that in the memory bank here so that I know next time if I'm in a similar situation, I'm not going to respond the same way because I know this didn't really, pan out the way I wanted it to. How valuable do you think that is? If you can look back at any of your past experiences, and here's the thing, life will keep showing you the same things over and over again until you deal with them. So the lessons will keep coming back over and over and over again until you learn what not to do. And this journey is not about getting it perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody is perfect. Life is not meant to be perfect. It's a journey of discovering, of evolving, of healing. There is so much to learn along this journey. Like so much to learn, but you've got to step into being a creator, which means you've got to learn to navigate your ego with your soul because your ego is never going away. You need that primal part of your brain for literal survival, right? But most of the time, we're not in situations where it's literally life or death. I'm not going to say that doesn't happen. It can, and it has for me. But the majority of our life is not spent in literal danger like it was back in the caveman days, right? But that primal part of our brain that was built back then was hardwired for literal survival, but it never got an upgrade. It's kind of like your phone. When you think of your phone, right? So your phone, you get downloads on it, software downloads all the time to keep it up to date, right? Well, our brain, that primal part of your brain, did not receive any kind of software update. We actually have to do it ourselves. This is part of the journey. So when you realize that your ego is meant to sit in the passenger seat and you are meant to be in the driver's seat of your life, you learn to recognize when your ego is loud and rowdy and judgmental and defending, right? And looking at worst case scenarios. But you have to be aware of that happening, which means you got to take time to pause. This is where the 15 minutes per day is so important because life will go on all day. And in those moments when life is going on, there's just too much happening for your brain to go, oh yeah, but I got to think about blah, 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 blah. No, but when you pause and you get really still and you get really present, guess what happens? You hear yourself. You hear your ego. You hear your soul. And you clearly know the difference between the two. Loud, judgmental, defending, fearful. That's the ego. Soul, whisper. Creative, intuitive, loving, compassionate, playful. And you want to start to hear more of her. You want to make her the louder voice, the louder the volume, and you want to start to drown out the noise from the ego. And you do that by pausing for 15 minutes a day. This allows your nervous system to get regulated. It allows your mind to get calm so you can gain clarity and focus. It allows your body to release tension, stress, anxiety, heavier emotions. This is why yin yoga is so powerful for that, to help you, right? Like these practices, these self-care practices that are part of this journey here for you is to help you to gain the clarity and the confidence to become the creator in your life instead of being the victim. But the onus and the responsibility now is on you to take what you learn here in this masterclass and through the embodiment practices and use them every single day as your gateway into creating your best life. Because we're not meant to do it alone. And in fact, I want to tell you that you're not alone on this journey. Whether, this is not a religious course by any means. So whether you believe in God, whether you call, like source, universe, spirit, angels, whatever it is that you subscribe to, it's all good. There's no wrong here. But this process of creating your best life is actually a co-creation with those higher powers. And when you sit and you pause and you get still and present for 15 minutes a day, you start to tap into those higher powers who give you the next piece of inspired aligned action to take that's going to move you closer and closer on your journey towards the thing it is that you desire. I want you to think of it this way. You're in a car on the road, and you can see in the far distance where you want to go to. And you want it to be a really clear drive with no obstacles in front of you. But every time you listen to your ego, you're putting a car in front of your car, and then another car, and then another car, and then another car. And next thing you know, you're in a traffic jam, and you can't even see now where you're going. You can't see that place you desire to be at because there's too many cars in front of you. And all those cars are another part of your ego telling you what to do. Now, when you're listening to your soul, you're cruising along that road and there's nothing in front of you to stop you. How does that sound? How does that land for you? Right? How does that land for you? Because you're here to create. But you're also here as this flesh, blood, and bones human person in this human experience with a primal brain that's always scared. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've been so scared to move, but I did it anyway. And I'll tell you, it's never as scary as you think. It's never as scary as your ego makes it out to be. It's never as worst case scenario as your mind makes it out to believe. That is your ego. Every single time. So you just learn to make the moves. And I'll tell you that the more that you self-care, the more confidence it's going to give you, the more stamina, strength, and courage it's going to give you to make those bold moves that eventually aren't going to be so scary. Like if you look back at anything that you've created in your life and you look at the journey that you got to be on to get there, I bet you anything it wasn't as scary as you thought it was going to be. It's just scary because it's not known. It's just scary because it's uncertain. And your primal brain, your ego just wants certainty. It wants the safety of, well, we already know this. And even if whatever we know isn't making us happy, to the ego, it's safe. And that's all your ego mind is designed for, is to keep you safe. So creating to the ego mind is anything but safe. Because when you're creating something, you have no idea what that journey is going to be like and what it's actually going to be when it finally arrives. Because a lot of the times it's way better than you even think it could be possible. Yeah. But your ego just is like, it's like a small screaming child at you. But we can't do that. It's too scary. We don't know what it's going to be like. It's going to hurt. What if we fail? What if we land flat on our face? I start to think now, whenever my ego gets rowdy, I just think of it as the small childlike version of me that used to throw temper tantrums when I didn't get what I wanted. And that's basically what's happening. The ego is not getting what it wants. Remember, it wants safety and certainty and security. And you're going, oh, and we're throwing all of that caution to the wind and we are going for XYZ. But your ego is going, yeah, but we're used to ABC over here. We don't know what XYZ is like. We don't want to do that. No way, man. Start to think of your ego like a small screaming child. And I tell you, it will be a game changer for you. It was literally game changing for me. And now, like, I make bold moves every single day. So I'm always scared. But guess what? My ego is now used to it. Now it's like, oh, we're making another move. I'll have a moment where it's like, oh, wait, can't do that. But then guess what? I take the inspired, aligned action right away. This is what's really key. This is the last piece I want to leave you with on this, is that when you get that next piece of action to take, move on it right as soon as you can. Because the longer you sit and wait on it, the more time your ego has to go, and we're going to convince you not to do that. So now, when I get that spark, I get that download, that hit of intuition, let's do this. This is the next piece that's moving me forward on my journey to XYZ. I move as fast as I can. Like sometimes it's not possible. I might be in the middle of something, like I'm working with a patient or I'm working with, teaching a class. So I can't in that hot second do it. But I'm also so aware now that my ego is going to try and hop in ASAP. So I just hold that in my memory bank and go, yeah, I know, ego, you're getting loud. But then as soon as I can move, I go for it. Because I know waiting is like creates all the doubt. And as soon as there is a mind filled of doubt, there is a life filled of unfulfillment. Doubt will kill every single dream you have, and your ego is the one that creates the doubt. Your soul is what drives you to move forward. So if you choose to continue staying in the ego mind and listening to it, you're continuing to stay a victim of your life. If you're choosing to listen to your soul, then you're choosing to step into being a creator of your life. So the last thing I want to leave you with is, what do you wish to be? a creator of your life or a victim, because it's your choice and there's no one else who is making that choice for you. It's your call. So listen to this masterclass as often as you need to. Do the embodiment practices, because the information without the integration is just a whole whack of noise that isn't going to land. And it's going to be like you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it's going to stick. So I'm super glad that you chose to listen to this, because it was your soul calling you for more. Just remember that. Anytime you get scared, just remember you chose this because your soul was ready to evolve. So thank you so much for joining me. Have an awesome rest of your day. Namaste.